The silence in our suburban Chicago home had never felt so loud. It was a living thing, thick and heavy, pressing in on me from all sides. 3 days had passed since Mark had dropped his bombshell, and we were moving around each other like carefully programmed robots, all polite smiles and hushed tones. Please pass the salt. How was work? The mundane conversations were a flimsy dam holding back a torrent of unspoken words. The shock had worn off, leaving behind a raw, aching confusion. My husband of 15 years, the man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages and had been my rock when we decided our family was perfectly complete with our daughter, Chloe, now wanted to undo the very procedure that had given us that peace. A vasectomy reversal. The words echoed in my mind, a bizarre and foreign concept that felt completely detached from the life we had built. I tried to focus on the familiar rhythms of a Tuesday evening. I was chopping vegetables for a stir-fry, the rhythmic thwack of the knife on the cutting board a feeble attempt to drown out my thoughts. Mark was in the living room, supposedly helping Chloe with her math homework, but I could feel the tension radiating from him even from 20 feet away. Later that night, after we'd tucked Chloe in and listened to her recount every detail of her school play audition, the facade finally cracked. We were in our bedroom, the soft glow of my reading lamp creating a small pool of light in the darkness. Mark was sitting on the edge of his side of the king-sized bed, staring at his hands. "Sarah," he began, his voice quiet but firm. "We can't keep not talking about this." I closed the book I wasn't really reading and placed it on my nightstand. The knot in my stomach tightened. "I know," I whispered. He turned to look at me, and in the dim light, I saw not the confident, decisive man I'd married, but someone haunted, burdened by a secret I didn't understand. "You think I've lost my mind," he stated, not asking. I don't know what to think, Mark," I said, my voice trembling. "This is so far out of left field. We made this decision together. We cried about it together. We moved on. Why now, after all this time?" He took a deep, shuddering breath. "It's not about wanting a baby. Not in the way you think." "Then what is it about?" I pleaded, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "Because from where I'm sitting, a vasectomy reversal is a pretty clear path towards trying to have a baby. And Mark, I'm 42. My body, my heart, I can't go through that again. The hope, the terror, the loss. We have Chloe, she's our miracle. Why is she suddenly not enough?" The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. They sounded cruel, even to my own ears. But the fear was a wild animal inside me, clawing its way out. Mark flinched as if I'd struck him. "She is enough, Sarah. God, she is everything. This has nothing to do with her not being enough." He stood up and started pacing the limited space at the foot of our bed. "It's about me. It's about a feeling I can't shake." He stopped and faced me, his expression one of utter torment. "Do you remember my cousin, David?" The question was so unexpected it took me a moment to place the name. David, Mark's cousin, 10 years his senior. They hadn't been close, but we'd see him at big family reunions. A quiet, kind man who never married. "Yes, of course. He passed away a few months back. Pancreatic cancer. It was so sad." "Yeah," Mark said, his voice thick. "It was. I went to see him, about a week before he died." I sat up straighter. "You never told me that." I couldn't talk about it." He ran a hand through his already messy hair. "He was so thin, Sarah. So frail. But his mind was sharp. We talked for hours. About life, about regrets." Mark's eyes welled up, and a cold dread began to creep up my spine. He told me, he said the single biggest regret of his life was never having children. He said he'd built a good life, a successful career, traveled the world. But it all felt transient. Like he was just a placeholder. He said, "Mark, when you have a child, you plant a tree whose shade you know you'll never sit in. You're a link in a chain. I'm just a dead end." Mark's voice broke on the last 2 words. "He died alone, Sarah. In a hospice room. And his name, his line, his entire branch of the family tree, it died with him. It just ended." The room was spinning. I finally understood the source of the earthquake, but the ground was still crumbling beneath my feet. "Oh, Mark," I breathed out, my heart aching for his pain, for David's lonely death. "That's heartbreaking. It truly is. But honey, we're not David. We have Chloe. Our chain isn't broken. Our tree has a beautiful, thriving branch. But what if it's only one branch?" He whispered, his gaze intense. "What if something happens? It sounds morbid, I know, it sounds crazy. But seeing David like that, It unlocked a primal fear in me I didn't even know I had. It's not about wanting a son. It's about legacy. It's about resilience. It's about ensuring that our family, our little piece of the world, is strong. That it has more than one chance to continue. He came and sat beside me, taking my cold hands in his. When I had the vasectomy, it was a final decision. A closed door. And at the time, it was the right door to close. But now it feels like I voluntarily cut myself off from a future possibility. It feels like I made us more fragile. David's words made me feel the weight of that decision in a way I never had before. Reversing it wouldn't be a promise to have another baby. It would just be opening the door again. Just a crack, just to know it's not permanently locked and bolted. I listened, truly listened, for the first time. This wasn't a midlife crisis, not in the cliché sense of sports cars and hair plugs. This was an existential crisis. It was a man confronting his own mortality, the fragility of life, and the deep, human desire to leave a mark, to be part of something that continues. He was terrified of ending up like David, and in his mind, our single-child family was a risk, a vulnerable single point of failure. The logic was flawed, driven by emotion and fear, but I finally understood the emotion. The shock began to recede, replaced by a profound and complicated sadness. My husband was grieving and scared, and he was asking me to help him feel safe again, to help him feel like our family was unbreakable. He just had a wildly different idea of how to achieve that than I did. "Mark," I said softly, squeezing his hands. "I hear you. I finally hear what you're saying. And my heart breaks for what you went through with David. I can't even imagine how hard that was." I took a deep breath, choosing my words with immense care. "But you're asking me to make a huge, physical, and emotional concession based on a fear. You're asking me to potentially put my body and my heart through the ringer again because you're afraid of a what if?" Tears started to stream down my face. My fear is different. It's not a what if. It's a I know. I know the soul-crushing pain of losing a pregnancy. I know the anxiety of those 9 months, holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I know what it did to us, to our marriage, the first 2 times. We barely made it through, Mark. We have this beautiful, stable, happy life with Chloe. Are you willing to risk all of that? The peace we fought so hard for? For a possibility? For a feeling?" He was silent, staring at our joined hands. The truth of my words hung in the air between us. This wasn't just his decision, it was ours. And the potential costs for me were so much more tangible, more physical. "I don't know," he finally admitted, his voice ragged. "All I know is that this feeling, this dread, is eating me alive. I look at Chloe and I'm filled with so much love, and then this voice in my head whispers, what if? What if? It's torment, Sarah." We stayed like that for a long time, holding hands in the quiet darkness, 2 people stranded on an island of shared history, staring at a churning, uncertain sea between them. The problem was no longer a mystery, but the solution felt impossibly out of reach. The next few weeks were a masterclass in emotional limbo. We started seeing a marriage counselor, Drive Evans, a calm woman with a gentle voice who created a safe space for us to voice the unsayable. In her office, Mark talked more about his childhood, about being an only child himself and feeling the weight of his parents' expectations. He talked about the loneliness he sometimes felt, a loneliness he hadn't even recognized until David's death held a mirror up to it. I talked about my miscarriages not as past events, but as wounds that had scarred over but could still ache in cold weather. I talked about the terror of being a vessel for potential heartbreak again. I explained that for me, closing the door on having more children hadn't been a surrender, it had been an act of self-preservation, a way to build a fortress of contentment around the family I was so grateful to have. Dr. Evans helped us see that we were both operating from a place of deep love and deep fear. Mark's fear was for the future, for legacy and continuity. My fear was rooted in the past, in trauma and loss. The present, our happy present with Chloe, was getting crushed between the two. One afternoon, I was cleaning out the hall closet, a mindless task I hoped would bring some order to my chaotic thoughts. I pulled down an old cardboard box labeled Memories and blew off a layer of dust. Inside were photo albums, old birthday cards, and a stack of my old journals from my 20s. I sat on the floor, the worn leather of one journal familiar under my fingertips. I flipped it open, my eyes scanning the youthful, dramatic script. And then I found it. An entry from a few months after our second miscarriage. The doctor confirmed it today. Another one. Gone. It feels like my body is a graveyard. Mark is trying so hard to be strong for me, but I see the light in his eyes has dimmed. We don't talk about the future anymore. We just move through the days. He told me tonight, Sarah, whatever happens, we're a family. You and me, that's the core, that's all that matters. And for a moment, in the darkness, I believed him. I read the words, written in a moment of absolute despair, and tears blurred the ink. You and me, that's the core. We had said that to each other so many times. It was our mantra. When had we stopped believing it? When had the core started to feel insufficient? That night, after Chloe was asleep, I led Mark into the living room and showed him the journal entry. He read it silently, his jaw tight, his eyes glistening. I meant that, he whispered hoarsely. I meant it with every fiber of my being. I know you did, I said. And I think you still do. You're just scared, and your fear is making you forget our core. He pulled me into a tight embrace, the first real, unguarded hug we'd shared in weeks. I'm so sorry, he murmured into my hair. I'm so sorry I'm putting you through this. I never wanted to make you feel like our life, our family, isn't everything. It was a turning point. Not a solution, but a reconnection. The conversation shifted. It was no longer about if we would do the reversal, but about why Mark felt this void couldn't be filled by anything else. We started talking about other ways to build a legacy, to feel connected to the future. We talked about volunteering with a youth program, of becoming mentors. We talked about starting a college fund for future grandchildren, of planting an oak tree in the backyard that would outlive us all. The idea of the reversal began to lose its power, its urgency. It was no longer the only key to the lock of his fear. About a month later, we were at a school picnic. Chloe, now 11, was running around with a pack of friends, her laughter ringing across the park. Mark was manning the grill, laughing with some of the other dads. I watched him, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the easy way he moved. He looked lighter. He looked like my Mark again. Later, as we packed up our blankets and cooler, Chloe ran ahead to the car. Mark slung an arm around my shoulders. You know, he said, his voice quiet and steady. I've been thinking. Uh-oh, I joked softly, leaning into him. He smiled. Seriously. About the procedure. About everything. He took a deep breath. I was wrong to ask that of you. I was so consumed by my own fear that I wasn't seeing you. I wasn't seeing the incredible, complete family we already have. Asking you to reopen those old wounds, it was selfish. And it was based on the idea that what we have isn't enough. But it is, Sarah. It's more than enough. My breath hitched. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm dropping the request, he said, his eyes meeting mine, clear and sure for the first time in months. No reversal. It's off the table, permanently. A wave of relief so powerful it was almost dizzying washed over me. But it was followed immediately by a strange, protective concern for him. Are you sure? What about that feeling? The dread? I'm not going to lie and say it's completely gone, he admitted. But you were right. Feeding the fear by trying to control the uncontrollable wasn't the answer. The answer is right here. He nodded towards Chloe, who was now doing cartwheels on the grass. The answer is in being present in this amazing life we've built. The answer is strengthening our core, not adding to it out of anxiety. We stopped walking and just held each other, right there in the middle of the park. It felt like coming home after a long, arduous journey. The shock, the arguments, the tears, they had led us here, to a place of deeper understanding and a renewed commitment. That was 2 years ago. The journey wasn't over the day we left that park. Mark still had moments of what he calls the David feeling, but he's learned to talk to me about it, to acknowledge the fear without letting it dictate our lives. We did end up becoming big brother and big sister mentors to a wonderful teenager in the city, and that has given us both a profound sense of connection and purpose that extends beyond our immediate family. Our marriage is different now. Stronger, I think. We faced a chasm that could have broken us, and instead of letting one of us fall in or the other walk away, we built a bridge, painstakingly, together. Sometimes, when I watch Mark teaching Chloe how to throw a spiral with a football, or when I see the two of them with their heads bent together over a complicated Lego set, my heart feels so full I think it might burst. We are a family of 3. Not a compromise, not a consolation, but a perfect, complete, and deeply loved unit. My husband's request did shock me. It shocked me to my very core. But in the end, that shockwave didn't destroy our foundation. It revealed its fault lines, and gave us a chance to rebuild it, stronger than ever before. The door we once closed remains closed, and we are no longer afraid of the silence on the other side. We are too busy listening to the beautiful, joyful noise of the life we have, right here, right now.